Hello everybody, I'm back with another astrophotography video. Been a while since I've done one, but I've learned a lot since the last one that I've done, and I'm going to demonstrate some of that now. But before I begin, first I need to give a shout out to Arlo. Hi Arlo, how's it going, buddy? I heard you got a galaxy projector. That is so cool. You can look at stuff that it shows you, just like I can look at stuff in the deep space with this thing here, my little Dwarflab2 telescope. Well, maybe telescope's not quite the accurate term for this. Fancy camera maybe is better. But anyway, I've learned a lot on how you can take the data that the Dwarflab gives you, and you can make the pictures much better than the pictures that you get straight out of the telescope itself. And it's all done by using Siril software. I have procured one of these shirts because Siril software is an awesome piece of software that I've come to know and love over the last few months. And so much so that I have gone back to observations I've made with this telescope and managed to save to my hard drive. I'm so glad I did. But I've taken old observations from this telescope from a year ago and more, and have revisited them, and using information that I have learned from mostly this guy, Rich, over at Deep Space Astro. He has lots of videos on YouTube that instruct you on how to use Siril software. And highly recommend anyone wanting to learn how to use Siril to get better pictures with their Dwarflab data to check out Rich's videos on how to use Siril for doing color photo processing. So anyway, I'm going to show now the latest workflow that I use with Siril to get the best I can out of my Dwarflab data. And the data I'm going to use is the data that I shot back in November last year of the comet A6 Lemon. So let's go check that out. So here is an observation that I made. This was on the 3rd of November. You won't recall the exact time, but I think the photos will tell us that. But this particular observation was a very, very short one. Looks like I only got 3 light frames. There were 3 failed frames also recorded, but we'll concentrate on the 3 good light frames. As it turns out, in Siril, 3 is about the minimum number of light frames that you need to be able to do processing. So, utilizing the bare minimum number of light frames available on this particular observation that I took, I'm going to apply Siril processing to try to create a better image than the image that the Dwarflab stacked for me. Now, the image that the Dwarflab stacked for me is right here. Stacked JPG. You can have a look at it. And try to make that full screen. There we go. And that's a very nice picture. This is the picture that came out of the Dwarflab by default through the Dwarflab's own internal stacking procedures. And it's a very nice picture. You could take this picture over to, I don't know, Adobe or GIMP or any number of graphics operating software, graphics manipulation softwares, and make this picture look even better, which I did do that with a picture like this. However, I've learned since then that I can get everything done in Siril and not even have to go to a third-party graphics software to get a good picture, to get a better picture than the picture that I get. So let me show you how I do that. This is the picture that the Dwarflab gave me. I'm going to try to make a better picture than that using Siril. And here we go. So first thing I will do to prepare to use Siril is I will go to my current Siril working directory, which I'm using an F drive. I'll talk about that a little bit too now. The F drive I'm using is an SSD drive. I'm making a point of that because anytime you use an external hard drive, your serial processing will get slower. However, if you use an SSD as your external hard drive, that will speed up your hard drive or your serial processing dramatically versus using a disk-based or an HDD type attached hard drive. That has been my experience. So I have set myself up a Siril working directory on a 1 terabyte SSD drive. It's attached drive F on my system. I have a directory called Siril temp, and that is the working directory I have identified in Siril to use. First thing I will do is create a new folder, and I will name it Lights, because Lights is the name of the folder that Siril is going to look for. Inside that folder, I will deposit my 3 light from this particular observation, my 3 lights that I got on the night of the 3rd of November. There's a few other observations from the same night that I'll process also, but I'm just working on this one for now. Okay, I've got my lights deposited into my lights folder, and the next thing I will do is activate Siril. Just looking to see if I'm dropping any frames. It doesn't appear as though I am so far. Alright, and Siril is up and running. And since my lights are ready to go, and I've got my working directory identified as F Siril temp, all I have to do is run the correct script to process those light files. The very short stack of 3. And to do that, I will use the Siril script file pre-processing without dbf. Run that script. And we are complete. So, at that point, in the working directory, Siril has placed a process folder, which we will delete when we're all done. We don't need anything out of that, at least not now. There are times when there are files in there that you can use, and I'm going to talk about that on some future video. For now, let's just concentrate on the result file. So this is the result of the processing of the stack of 3 that Siril has done. I'll take that file and deposit it in Siril for further processing. We're looking at the linear view of the file. Right now I'm going to go straight to the histogram view. From the histogram view, I'm going to make my initial crop on this image. The purpose of this crop is pretty much just to get rid of the edges of the image, to rule out edge artifacts. This is also an opportunity to kind of maybe reframe your image a little bit if you choose to do so. I'm going to do that and crop that out. And now that that image is cropped, the next thing I'm going to do is a background extraction. And I'm going to use the Python script AutoBGE, script I learned about from Rich at Deep Space Astro. Thank you, Rich. And in the case of the comet pictures, I like to exclude the comet and the tail from the processing of the background removal. And I'll do that by clicking Add Exclusion Area, and I'll draw a little rough line around that comet. And I will now process that, and the processing will now ignore that area in red. What this process does is it tries to make up for the I don't know how to say this, varying gradient of light across the sky, and it tries to equalize it all to be equal. I don't know. It also helps compensate for background lighting, maybe. People more knowledgeable than me would be better off to explain that. Let me just say it's a necessary procedure that you need to do, and this is the proper time to do it. Procedure is done. I will now close that, and I could take another look at this image with different views, but I know the very next two things I need to do. It doesn't matter what image I'm looking at here. What I want to do now is go straight to astrometry, and I want to do an image plate solver. This has a few purposes, but the main purpose is to set this up so I can then do a color calibration. You'll notice that when I did the plate solver, it flipped my image upside down, which in the case of the night I did the observation would not be correct. So I can flip that back over by going down here and doing that. And I also need to flip it that way to be correct for the night I did the observation. So, next step, color calibration. Photometric color calibration. I have my sensor and my telescope identified here. That's really the only thing I really needed to do on this, other than accept all the defaults and click OK. And this process will do all the color correcting necessary. When the process is done, it presents you with a couple of graphs that I have no idea what to do with, so I just close them, close the process. At this point in time, I would then go down and have a look at the auto stretch preview of the image. Noting that I am still looking at the linear data only. I'm just looking at an auto stretch preview. But this is a good time to do a couple of things. One of the things I like to do is I like to do a star processing desaturate star run. Desaturate any oversaturated stars. And then I also like to run the Python script Aberration Remover. Is a wonderful little tool, highly recommended. This helps compensate for my Dwarflab telescope, my little telescope. Helps compensate for it not being super accurate on how it tracks things. Let's put it that way. So anyway, hats off and a salute to Ricardo for providing this script. It's made all of my Dwarflab images look better. Now the process here is it'll run through all three channels, and doing processes on all three channels, and then it'll be done, and our stars will look a lot nicer. Right, process is complete. Let's show you the difference here. So, before, take a good look. There's your before. There's the after. Notice how the stars all tightened up a little bit. Makes them look a lot nicer. Okay, now this is the point in the workflow process where if I was processing a nebula, I would at this point do a star removal. And what that process does is it removes the stars from the image and leaves you with an image without stars, but with all the nebula or gases and stuff like that still displayed on the screen. A process that I really do almost all the time on almost all images. In the case of these comet photos, I have learned through experience that it's not necessary to do a star removal. the new stretch tool provided by Verilux does an awesome job on these comet picks without going through the rigmarole of separating the stars and then recombining them back again. So I'm going to not do a star removal on this particular image or on any of my comet images. It just didn't seem to make the images any better. Not doing a star removal. I'm going to go straight to, first of all, let me go into, there's one more thing I want to do. Almost forgot. I always get a lot of green noise in my images out of the Dwarflab. So I do want to remove the green noise, and we'll do that now. And close that. There we go. It takes the green noise out. And now I am ready to put this into linear view. I'm going to go find the Python script Verilux hypermetric stretch and run that. And hats off to the writer of this tool. This has improved every single one of my Dwarflab images, because one of the problems that I struggled with in learning to use Siril and learning how to work with Siril was learning how to work with these stretching tools. I just could not get the hang of using the generalized high stretch, the curves, the A-sign. There's one other, I forget it. But the generalized one in particular, I had some good results with it. I had other results that were, I don't know, they just didn't look real. I just struggled trying to do stretches. This tool here, Verilux Hypermetric Stretch, has relieved me of all that crap, because it gives me a perfect stretch on every image I get, and I no longer have to even worry about it. So it has dramatically improved every image I've taken with the Dwarflab, and is probably the number one reason why I've been going back and revisiting all my old data and starting to reprocess it again. So anyway, having said all that, and giving a huge shout out to this person who made this, it's been my experience that with the pictures I get out of my Dwarflab, I did lower the default target BG to 1.5 from 2. That seemed to work better for the images I was getting. Although I do raise it to 2 in some cases. It kind of depends on various other factors. But it's probably about the only default, in fact that is definitely the only default setting I have changed on this particular tool. I will turn on the live preview. You can see how that works. You click AutoCalc Log ID. Gives you a live preview of how that image is going to look when you do the process, and then if that is satisfactory to you, which 99 times out of 100 it always is to me, I will click Process. It's done, and there's my stretched image. Looking good, looking good. Now there's a couple more tools we can apply that are going to make this image look much better. I can't say it already looks better than the image I got straight out of the Dwarflab, and I'm not done with it yet. So, next step. Run the Python script, Cosmic Clarity, Sharpen. Run that script. And on this one, we are going to run both processes, stellar only and non-stellar only. And I'm going to bump the stellar up to a 5.6. Bump this non-stellar up to maybe 6.2. And I'm going to run my strength up to a 6. I'll go 6.5 on the stellar amount, and I'll stick with 5.6 on this, or 6.5 on the non-stellar amount, and I'll stick with the 5.6 on the stellar amount. And at this point I will click Apply. And this is a long process. I will be doing some cut editing here because it's going to take a few minutes. So we'll be back. Okay, that process is finally completed. Here we can take a look at the before and the after. So let me back to the desktop here, So here's the before. Here you see the before. In fact, let me even zoom in. There's before and after. Very nice. Sharpen that up really nicely. I like that. So after doing the sharpening process, the next process I want to do is a Python script called HDR multiscale. And this one's fairly simple. Zoom in on that comet, take a good look at it here. I'm going to take the number scales number, I'm going to lower that to 2 and hit the preview button. There we can, let me zoom in on that a little bit more. You can see the results. Here's the original and here's the HDR applied, and I do like that. More detail. So let's apply that to Siril. And we're done with that tool. One more tool I want to apply is the Python script clarity denoise, cosmic clarity denoise. We'll run that on full, and we will do a denoise strength of 5/6 and apply that, and this will take a while. I will be right back. Okay, and the denoise process is done, and what a dramatic difference. It really does a really nice job, and this is pretty much almost the final state of this image. We're almost done. There's one more adjustment I'll need to make, and I'm not clear why this happens. In fact, guess I'll go ahead and talk about it, because that's a really nice view. If I want to do a before and after, something changes. I don't know if this is a bug in the software or what, but if you notice how dark that image is, as it should be, if I look at the before, here's the before view. Now if I look at the after applying the denoise, the image is better, but that darkness has lightened up for some reason. And that wasn't there before until I did a before and after look. So I don't know if anyone at Siril knows why that happens. It is something I've noticed. There's an easy fix for it, and I know how to do it. And I'll show that right now, because I did improve the image. Let me zoom in and show you what I'm talking about. If we look at the image of the comet, the before the denoising and the after the denoising did a wonderful job. But there is a brightness that appeared in the background, so I'm going to adjust for that, and it's a simple adjustment. And we will use the curves. And the way I like to use this tool on most of my images, and the comet image is no exception, is I like to place 3 dots along the line at those particular locations. Then the first adjustment I'll do will be this one right here. Well, I will drop that down as far as I can go, making sure, making sure that I don't clip any data, and that's demonstrated over here by this number. And I'm about a little bit clipped there, so let me lift that up a little bit and drop that back to 0. Made sure I didn't clip any data, and there, that pretty much restored the darkness that was there before. However, I think I can make it look even maybe a little bit better and clearer. Let's zoom in to this comet a little bit, and I'm going to drop this one a little. See what that does. What's the difference between there and there? It actually looks like I lose a little detail. Looks like I probably should leave it there. Maybe even raise it a little bit. Yeah, no, that's too much. Don't want to blow up the middle at all, or as little as possible. But still, if I can get a little more detail in there, it's almost like you can see a nucleus, isn't it? And the other one, I don't know if I want to fiddle with these anymore. It actually is looking pretty good. Let me go look at the full view. It looks pretty nice. It's a case of don't mess with it too much. Just leave it be. Okay, so I will do just one more quick curve adjustment, and this is just to add a little bit more darkness. I'll just put one dot right there in the middle, and just do a very slight S here, just like that. Just darken it just a hair, just a little bit. Made it look a little bit better. Close. There's my final image. At this point, I would save it as a unique file. And I also like to put, if there's any astrometric tags available in this frame, I can determine that by clicking this tool right here, if it's lit up, which it is. And the reason it's lit up is because we did the image plate solving. So if there's any markers on here available, this will reveal them. There, just one. So it's identified this star here. So I'll also save one picture with one of those astrometric markers on it. And there we go. If I go to my working directory, there are the two images that we have saved. So I can open it so we can have a look. There's the full screen view. That's the final image of the comet that I got. I could crop it up a little bit and make it a little larger too. I can also zoom in. But as we zoom in, that's looking really nice. And that is way better than the picture I got out of the Dwarflab. And let's look at that too, side by side, so we can check that out. So the Dwarflab picture was this one. What a difference. Zoom in, there's the Dwarflab picture versus my Siril process picture. Dwarflab, Siril. Big difference. Big difference. So, shut this all down. Oh, actually, I'm not done with that. I'm going to be processing a few more images after I'm done recording this. Let me go back to the control center here and get back out in space. And just summarize by saying that if you are an owner of one of these Dwarflab2s and you feel a burning desire to upgrade because you're unhappy with the images that you're getting out of this, maybe if you just sharpen up your software skills, you can get a lot more use out of this than you thought you could. I will tell you, since applying serial processing to all my Dwarflab images, they have all improved dramatically, and I will make a future slideshow about that to show off the work I've been able to do. Just using a low-end smart telescope and this awesome piece of free software called Siril. And that's all I have for now. So, again, shout out to Arlo, and ta-la!